Hello, friends. Hello, friends. A tradition unlike any other.
Oh, my goodness. In your life, have you seen anything like that?
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer. Mashed potato!
Here it comes.
Now, Drews, let's face it, nobody chooses to play from the rough. And thanks to our great new friends at Manscaped, maybe our listeners might never have to again, because the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0 has arrived, and I can tell you with all confidence, it's been a game changer for me these past few weeks. The ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Let's go through the performance package. It includes the Weed Whacker, up the nose, in the ears, increasingly relevant for people like me as the ears start to pile on. Never used something like the Crop Preserver before, but I'll never go back. A ball deodorant, straight out of the shower, dry yourself off, whack a little bit of this on the undercarriage, last the full day. Outstanding. The Crop Reviver, it's more of a, maybe you need a midday refresh. You've gone for a run at lunchtime, you've had a gym session, maybe you've just been hauling boxes in a bloody humid environment. A little bit of a spritz on the undercarriage, fresh as a daisy moving forward. And then finally, but most importantly, Drudes, the best piece of kit in this Performance Pack 4.0, it is the Lawn Mower 4.0 trimmer. Have a listen to this. Music to my ears. This bit of kit, my friend, will transform your situation below the waist from looking like the second cut of rough at a US Open to a neatly trimmed fairway. Now, even better, Manscaped have thrown in 2 free gifts to the performance package. They are, have a look at these, the Manscaped boxes, outstanding. For those of you never have enough pairs. And of course, the Shed travel bag. You can neatly tuck everything away and take it on the road with you. Now, you can join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for our listeners. 20% off, free worldwide shipping with the code T. That's TEE. That's 20% off, free shipping all over the world at manscaped.com and use the code TEE. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for this incredibly important job with Manscaped. Trust me, fellas, your balls will thank you. Sure Shot is driven by continuous innovation and dedicated to bringing golfers the very latest in technology and design. Sure Shot products are also designed to meet the challenge of measuring distances to the hazards and to the green from literally anywhere on the golf course. So you never again have to worry about finding those shitty wooden pegs, the random drains on the ground with yardage markers, anywhere, any place on the course. It's right in your hand. Drudes and I both carry the new Sure Shot Pinlock 6000 series laser rangefinders, featuring their fastest optics yet, enhanced battery life, an improved ergonomic case, and an internal magnet. The Sure Shot Pinlock 6000 series of laser rangefinders will help you know the distance and play the very best shot to get you on the green. Take the guessing right out of your game, transform how you play, and know the distance with Sure Shot. This is the 19th Tee podcast. Kieran Marsh and Nathan Drudy back with you for arguably, Drudes, the most special week in the golfing calendar. I've said to you previously, I think we're both clearly on the record. You are an Open Championship man, and I am a Masters man. I may be softening, and I'll tell you why. It's not a blanket swap, Open for Masters. What I'll say is it's probably every 5 years, and that's because on the Rotor, obviously we go back to St Andrews every 5 years. And I think what it might be now, rankings-wise, is an Open Championship at St Andrews, the Masters, and then the Open Championship every other 4 years.
Can you be that selective?
Well,
That's
I'm going to
very
be.
much sitting on the fence.
I'm going to be, because I don't know about you. We're recording Monday evening, so we're still 3 days out from the start of the tournament, and just the content phenomenal. Obviously, guys finishing up at the Renaissance Club for the Scottish Open, which we'll get to in just a moment. Of course, won by Xander Schauffele, but a bunch of guys, Tiger included, just kind of skipped over from Ireland from the JP McManus Pro-Am straight to St Andrews. And the video has been coming out in the last 2 or 3 days between Tiger walking the course with JT, and then people out walking at 9:30, 10 o'clock on Sunday, putting as the sun's going down. It's just an incredibly special place.
It is, and I think that's this is a very, very special week. Obviously, 150th Open Championship at St Andrews. It's all lining up, and the stars are aligning for something very special to happen on Sunday. But I agree with you. The content that's been put out is fantastic, and it's a great little swing that I love. The sort of the Irish Open into the Scottish Open into the Open Championship is really cool. So very here for it.
You know what? It's a lot better than videos of balls being dropped into 5-inch rough a couple of days out from a major.
This is true.
I'll take this any day, to be honest with you, Drudes. Now, we will obviously we are in a major week. So, as is tradition here at the 19th tee, we'll have a comprehensive preview of the 150th Open Championship from St Andrews, the old course, later in the week. We are, as we always will, we'll give you our picks. We'll take a look at the conditions. And we are hoping to speak to our good friend, Jediah Morgan, who's, of course, making his debut at the Open Championship, having topped the Order of Merit across the Australasian summer. So Jed should be joining us from the course. Fingers crossed, Drudes, for our preview episode later in the week, which will be a lot of fun. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, because there was some golf played over the weekend, namely the Scottish Open at the Renaissance Club. As I said, Xander Schauffele, Drudester, his second win in a row. Some are saying 3 if you count the JP McManus Pro-Am at Adair Manor in Ireland, which he won as well. But, of course, the Travellers' Championship last upstart the PGA Tour. And this is, of course, a PGA Tour event with strategic alliance between the DP World and the PGA Tour, the Scottish Open. He wins it well on Sunday with a field coming at him, but did the job, Xander, in pretty comfortable fashion.
Yeah, he did. It was it was quite an interesting sort of final few rounds to watch, particularly Saturday, Sunday, obviously things heating up. But yeah, Xander, I don't know, hitting form at the right time of the year, I guess, for the Open Championship. Look, I don't think he wins it. I'll say that straight up. But yeah, there's no doubt he's the form player at the moment. And good to see his mate Patrick Cantlay just finishing a couple of shots behind as well. Good to see that they're just truly inseparable.
Good kart golf, those two. Fantastic kart golf. Can I ask you a question? And you're taking a sip of water. Very remiss of me at the top not to thank our great friends at Gage Roads Brewing Company.
Oh, yes.
I got a little sidetrack there, romanticising about the old course. I'm having a sidetrack thanks to WA's premier craft brewery, named after the strip of ocean between Rottnest and Fremantle. Big shout out to Gage Roads. Can I ask you a question off the top? Have we been, and by we I probably mean primarily me, over the lifespan of this podcast, too harsh on Xander Schauffele? He's now, I think he's at, I'm going to butcher this, but I want to say he's kind of somewhere between 5 and 7 PGA Tour victories.
7.
There you go. That's nothing to be sneezed at. 7. I shouldn't say sneeze in the current environment. There's nothing to be laughed at. 7 PGA Tour victories puts him in not necessarily rarefied air, but certainly separates him from a decent pack that are in that 1 to 5 range. And I suppose I don't feel as though we have, but the question could probably be asked, given his consistent performance week in, week out on the PGA Tour. Have we been too harsh? Where does he sit really? And I mean, he's a top 5 golfer in the world by rankings. Is he a top 5 golfer by eyes?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think has won every year since 2017 professionally. So ticking along nicely and demonstrating a bit of longevity there. Obviously, the 2 wins, as you mentioned, the Scottish Open and the Travellers. So he hasn't won small events either. I think that's probably important.
Big gold medalist as well.
Yeah, yes. I was just going to run through his wins there. So the Scottish Open by OWGR points won is his biggest event that he has won. He's won the HSBC Champion, so WGC. He's won the Tour Championship twice, 2017 and 2020. Century Tournament Champions, Travellers, and of course the Olympics in Tokyo. It's a fascinating one to kind of break down, and I think your question's really good. But I feel like we probably haven't been too harsh on him. I feel like we've been relatively fair, and maybe some of the golfing public and golfing media have been a little harsher. But I think my frustration with Xander is that he is a 7-time PGA Tour winner, and yet he hasn't converted that into a major. And I think that's probably my frustration. And I think the criticism is more out of frustration for him because he is a guy that I like. Like, I hope, I don't have anything against him. He's not the most interesting of players to watch, certainly, but, he gets the job done. He's got, of course, a T2 at the 2019 Masters, a T2 at the 2018 Open Championship, a T3 at the Masters last year, sorry. So he's certainly competed, and we've always said it's just that final 1% to get him over the line. So, yeah, probably to answer your question, I don't think we have been. Is that sort of in line with where you're at?
Yeah, I think my criticism, if you'd call it that, maybe my challenge to him has always been the muscle between the ears. And I think that's evidenced by, you just rattled off a series of top 5 finishes in majors without necessarily converting. And, you mentioned Patrick Cantlay there before. You'll remember, I think it was way back at the start of the year when we were kind of doing a little bit of a, look forward to what we were hoping to see across the year. And I said Pat Cantlay making the jump because I was increasingly less interested in him winning week in, week out on the PGA Tour. And I want to see him start winning when it counts. Now, undoubtedly, I think this is the best win of Schauffele's career. I mean, the field was stacked. And not only was the field stacked, but the conditions asked questions that a lot of people didn't have answers for. Like, there was a lot of good players who missed the cut, a lot of good players significantly over par. And Xander, did it pretty comfortably in the end. So really impressed with what he put together across the 4 days. Don't think I leave any less wanting of him to step up and do it when it counts. Not to say the Scottish Open doesn't. It's, it's, as I said, strength of field was high. It was the National Open. But there's 4 tournaments for me that matter in the year, and maybe a couple others. You go to Riv, you go to Muirfield, go to Arnie's Place. Outside of that, like, as I said, I don't get enthused by winning week in, week out on the tour.
No, but even those 3, like, that you've rattled off, sure, they're elevated events, but they're not majors. And I think that's, for me, is like, that's great. You can win 10 or 15 in total and have a handful of them be at Riv and whatever. But ultimately, we remember players who win majors, and that's Xander's challenge now, is that he's got to push on and convert one of those opportunities. So,
and I think it's the age-old question, right? Like, would you rather win 13 tour titles and no majors, or 5 and 2 majors? I think it's a pretty simple answer. I think anyone who's half interested in the game would answer the latter, and I'm certain that most tour players would answer the latter. So he's, I mean, as I said, I don't think there's any question on his game. He's capable. He has the game. He is a top 5 player in the world. I think both on ice and on rankings, no matter how easily they are manipulated. But it remains the muscle between the ears and the ability to convert when it matters. And I don't want to put my cards on the table, but I don't think he'll win at St Andrews.
Agreed. I'm with you. Anything else on Xander or
just Smith? Not Xander. Sorry,
from the Scottish Open. Sorry.
Yeah, Smithy for me. I mean, Spieth. I probably shouldn't just skip on over Jordan when he put himself in a position to win. Was only 1 back, and then I think he was 3 over on the back 9, including 2 doubles, I believe, coming home on Sunday, which truly is the full Spieth experience, and doesn't. I don't think gives me any sort of form, line, or read on how he could go at the Open, because he'd just as likely win it as he will be 6 or 7 shots off the lead. So that was fun, as it always is, to get invested and then obviously be disappointed. And then, I thought Smithy, I think he was 2 under on Sunday, which was one of the rounds of the day. He probably had a pretty inconsistent start to the tournament, but worked his way back into it and finishes not all that far off the pace, and finishes, pardon the pun, with the wind in his sail, because obviously it was pretty breezy there at the Renaissance Club. But that that fills me with confidence heading into St Andrews. So look, those two caught most of my attention outside of the winner on the weekend, and I think just the conditions. Obviously, a lot of criticism I thought came the way of the Renaissance Club. It was marked improvement from playing at the Juliet Estate in the middle of Ireland the week before. At least we got to the coastline. Shares a plot of land with Muirfield. Does the Renaissance, and it's no Muirfield, but I think as a stepping stone, it was just cool to see some links adjacent golf, and we saw the full experience. From guys not judging wind, not judging lie, not judging firmness, through to I think I saw Ricky hit a 430-yard drive downwind and run along the fairway. So we got the full experience, and it just kind of whet the appetite for what St Andrews will be that on steroids this week, which will be awesome.
Only one for me, or a couple for me, was Tommy Fleetwood finishing T4 alongside Patrick Cantlay. Kind of came home pretty strongly given the conditions, as you mentioned. Finished with 67-67. And then the other one that, so obviously the conditions were much more friendly earlier in the week, and we saw guys like Ricky Fowler, who went 69-69 and then fell off a cliff to finish in T47 alongside my man Adri Naus, who was thereabouts for a little moment. But John Rahm, I just wanted to call out here, 68, 72, 74, 71 to finish at 5 over. So not John Rahm's best golf. Finishes alongside your mate Hao Tong Lee. And not sold on John Rahm at the moment. I know this actually isn't the best. I mean, if we're talking form lines, this isn't actually the best form line for an Open Championship. So, in terms of if you win, you generally go on and do well. That's not necessarily the case. So, it's not panic stations yet for John Rahm, but must say it was a little concerning to see the horse fall out of him.
Yeah, I think you make a good point in the sense that St Andrews is truly unlike any other place in the world. So it's difficult to take a performance and transplant it to the old course. However, I think you want to see people trending in the right direction, which is kind of what I was flagging there with Smithy. Certainly not going to look at him play at the Renaissance and say, well, he's going to fly home on Sunday at the old course, but I know he's heading in the right direction, on his path there. And I tend to agree with Jon. Not the best of form at the moment. No. And I think a player, he has to get off to a really good start. I think he has to be at or under par through Thursday, pending the way that he goes in and pending the conditions. Because if he's, 3 or 4 over, his temperament, I'm not sure it will handle 4 days of, being taught a lesson around the old course in the conditions.
Agreed. Interesting one.
He's a little bit more Nick Kyrgios, say, than he is Rafa Nadal.
Yeah, no,
his countryman.
Fair. That's fair. No, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. All righty. What else do you got from Scotland? Anything else? Just
wanted to, because I know we're going to obviously talk a bit in depth about recent announcements, in the world of golf, probably pertaining to LIV and, the changes to PGA Tour, and probably how, more specifically and more importantly, how they'll translate to the tour here in Australia. So we are going to pick that apart in a moment. I just wanted to raise it here because I didn't particularly want to raise it in the preview episode later in the week. The decision of the R&A to essentially black ban Greg Norman from the event this week, 2-time winner of the Open Championship, obviously not the same as the Champions Dinner at Augusta, but they do have a past champions event every year at the Open Championship. A couple of clips around of Tiger talking to Lee Trevino today about it. A couple of clips around about Tiger clipping JT about not playing in it.
I was going to say,
which was very good.
I love that.
If you haven't seen it, take a look. It's on the Open Championships YouTube channel. They followed Justin Thomas around for one of his practice rounds, and Tiger, a couple of good little barbs in there. JT, very good.
Is there a bigger bromance on tour than JT and Tiger?
No, I don't think there is. I think. Obviously, I get the sense that there may not be a person more prominent from in terms of his fellow players, or even maybe from a golf perspective, certainly obviously his family, but maybe from a golf perspective, no person more prominent than JT for Tiger since his accident.
Yeah, that's fair.
Proximity where they live in Florida, spent a lot of time with him. Obviously, I think is a little bit of a mentor to Charlie. I think there's a depth of a relationship there that most people probably, we certainly aren't aware of. But it's nice. I think it's really nice to see. It's obviously a guy that he grew up idolizing, and they share he doesn't let many people in. I think that's clear. I think, you see John Rahm. I can't remember what tournament it was, but I think it might have been the US Open.
Yeah, it was.
Where he said he gets nothing from Tiger compared to JT.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see. But it doesn't preclude him. And this is what I love about Tiger. I love, he does it better than anyone else, that from the moment he steps on to the property. Now, he's not today where he will be on Thursday, but he certainly isn't where he was last week when he was walking around playing Ballybunion with Rory. From the moment he steps on the property, everything just starts to turn up a notch. Intensity, focus, pressure. And he did it with a smile on his face today. But when he said to JT, I'll see you tomorrow at the past Champions event, and then a moment later said, oh no, I forgot you've never won this. Yeah. That's a joke, but it's incredibly calculated. He does that so well, so much better than anyone else.
But that's also where he's at in his career. Like 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, when he was at the peak of his powers, you would never see Tiger do that. It's I've got some very fond memories of watching Tiger play and some of his victories. But one of, if not my favorite memory of Tiger is that clip of him with Kevin Na, where Kevin Na puts the ball in the hole. And, obviously walks it in and basically picks it up before it's hit the bottom of the cup. And Tiger hits a 3-footer and goes to run and grab it. And they just high five and they laugh. It was in the middle of a tournament. And it's just the smile on his face. It makes me very happy, that video, if you haven't seen it. But anyway, we're going way off track. Your thoughts on Greg Norman not being invited to the dinner, please?
Yeah, it's weird because I'm very cognizant of all the things I've said about Greg up until this point, since his involvement with the Live Golf Tour. I thought it was pretty average.
Agreed.
To be honest,
we hadn't discussed this prior to hitting the button, and I wasn't sure where you were going to land on this.
No, and I like it when we do that. We don't often do that, but sometimes we do leave it a mystery. It's just our little bit of fun. Look, I think both things can be true. I think it can be true that it would have been unavoidable that it would have turned into a bit of a circus. I don't think there's any way that he turns up there and it doesn't turn into a bit of a circus. But I think it's also true that maybe what I don't like about it is the fact that the R&A are kind of falling back on tradition. And this is a special and important year for the championship, and your attendance here would draw the attention away from that. Well, maybe in the name of tradition, you open the door to a two-time champion of your tournament, irrespective of, environmental factors, irrespective of politics, irrespective of what's happening, and you allow him to enjoy the festivities as the other fellow champions will. I got no doubt that he probably turns up and is standing on his own, because I don't know that many people would walk over to him and start having a conversation with him. But I don't think you exclude him from the event.
No, I agree. I 100% agree with you. Look, I think we both share very similar thoughts on Greg and what he's done in the past sort of 12 to 18 months, particularly with Liv. I still have the belief, and look, we don't know the guy, right? I genuinely think that if he got invited to that, I would like to believe that he would be a big enough guy to not turn it into a circus. I would like to think that he wouldn't be there in a fucking Liv hat, right? Or something, something that's promoting the Liv brand or whatever it was. There's no doubt that he'd get questions, but I also agree with you that I don't think people would really engage with him because he is so alienated. It's a difficult one because there are so many guys within that room that will be there on whatever night it is who have extraordinary character flaws, who have said abhorrent and done abhorrent things in their life. From Gary Player's thoughts on apartheid to, Tiger Woods's relationships. Like you can make a case for everyone, right? So I think if we start looking at individual flaws, we're going down a very slippery path, right? So
yeah, and let me clarify, when I said turn into a circus, I think that's more to do with the attention that it'll draw from a media perspective if he actually rocks up and is on the grounds. Like, I agree. I think he has enough respect for the game that he respects the tradition. I also believe that cannot understate how much of this is driven by a personal agenda he has against the PGA Tour.
Yeah, 100%.
So, like, it's I mean, to a lesser extent, the RNA, because the RNA have now fallen. Well, they hadn't really made a statement on live up until this point, now banning Greg. But it's less about the RNA; it is about a personal agenda against the PGA Tour. So I think he turns up there and is completely respectful of the occasion and the platform. Where I kind of fall on it is, I think, from ever since we did our two-part deep dive on Augusta National as a golf club. If you haven't listened to it, take the time. I still believe it's amongst our two best episodes we've ever done. I have, from the moment of taking a little bit of time to read into that place, like, I have an ultimate reverence and respect for that tournament, and I love it. As I kind of said that at the start, but since reading about that place, like, there's some bad dudes that laid the foundations of that club. And probably for a long time since, I've maybe held the RNA up as, well, I mean, at least we've got the RNA. We've always got the RNA to fall back on.
Messiah.
And, like, if Augusta are happy every year to welcome back some of the characters, to your point, who attend their past champions dinner and throw a green jacket on them and parade them around, and the RNA have got an issue with Greg, like, it seems a very odd line to draw to say, actually, no, this is a bridge too far. Like, this is what we determined to be amoral enough that we're going to tell you not to come, as opposed to some of the others in the room, as you say. So, look, for mine, couldn't agree less with Greg at the moment on his thoughts on the game and where it needs to go and what he's doing to it. Regardless, I think it's a misstep from the RNA to shut the door in his face.
Agreed. 100% agree. Has there ever been a better hire in terms of job fit and job description than Greg Norman heading up Live Golf?
No.
He is just the ultimate fit, isn't he? We've both done interviews before, and you go, yeah, what do you think about, can they do the job? Yeah, cultural fit? Yeah. This is bloody.
It's
this is through the big sticks. This one is.
It's a true fit hire. That's what it is. He's a fit hire. He's living out a 30-year dream that started in the early 90s when he, tried to get what has become the WGCs off the ground. So, yeah, it's perfect. It's poetry really in motion.
It is.
Speaking of, let's kind of transition. We flagged it. I mean, we flagged it as late as early as last week, I should say, and said it again at the top. Like, obviously, there's been a lot, and we kind of picked apart a little bit last week about things have moved significantly in the past probably 3 or 4 weeks, to the point at which it's forced the hand of the PGA Tour to make some announcements around, further elevated events, taking events overseas, freeing up some more cards, from a Corn Ferry perspective. Obviously, as with all things, a bit of trickle-down economics. There are trickle-down effects, Trudes, because the ripple effects felt at a PGA Tour level invariably have an effect across the world, because most people, if not all in golf, up until the introduction of the astronomical money offered by the Live Golf Tour, their path is to the PGA Tour. That's where they want to play. So when you make an announcement of that nature, it has a flow-on effect. And obviously, we are most interested about the effect it has on our players here locally in Australia. So I don't know if I've laid enough of a scene setter there for you to pick it up
that was excellent. Well
take
done.
us on the journey.
Yeah, I will. That was very good. So yeah, as you mentioned, and look, I think it's also very much important to note that these have been in the workings for a long period of time. They have spoken about prize purses increasing for a while, and there's obviously stuff that has to happen behind the scenes. It's not an overnight decision. But I don't think we can understate that Liv has really forced their hand. Liv's gone all in, and they've asked for a decision. So essentially, the key changes to the PGA Tour. Now, we've given this a little bit of time since the announcement was made, I believe, sort of late June. And we've also posed some questions to the PGA of Australia as well, and they've sent us a statement back, which we'll get to in a minute. But the key changes. So firstly, the PGA Tour will return to a calendar schedule in 2024. There will be 8 tournaments with significantly enhanced prize purses. They are the Century Tournament of Champions, which almost doubles the Genesis. So Century Tournament Champions, 15 million. Bearing in mind, 15 million was the highest prize, or was the highest purse in golf history up until the Players Championship this year.
Important context as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm almost certain the Century Tournament Champions is capped at 30 players.
It is correct. Yeah. That is correct.
So yep. 30 players are playing for $15 million.
Correct. Up from 8.2. The Genesis up to 20 million. The Arnold Palmer, the API, up to 20 million. The Players Championship up to 25 million. My apologies, it was at 20 million this year. The match play, the WGC match play, unbelievably, 20 million.
That's good.
The Memorial, 20 million. FedEx St. Jude Championship, which is now part of the FedEx Cup playoff, 20 million. And the BMW Championship, 20 million. So that's the prize purses. There are revised field sizes for the FedEx Cup playoffs, which probably out of all the things here, we're not going to touch on that much because it's not particularly interesting. And the most important thing from our perspective is a reimagined fall, including up to 3 no-cut limited field international events. Now, of those 3, one will be in Asia/Oceania on a rotating basis. So the tour has said that. So that's the key changes. There are also an additional number of Corn Ferry cards available. So for our Australian guys who go over, they have a greater chance of going through Corn Ferry Q School and getting more cards on the PGA Tour. So that's the key changes. Do you want to pick it up from there?
Really briefly, I've 3 thoughts.
Yep.
3 immediate thoughts that come to mind.
Hit me.
How long have you been in a position to do this?
Correct.
Because
$1 million question.
Cannot imagine. I truly cannot fathom a situation in which decision makers at Ponte Vedra, PGA Tour headquarters, have gotten a room in the last 3 weeks and pulled the trigger on these things. There is no circumstance under which that could possibly be true, because things of this nature do not move that quickly.
Yeah.
So how long have you been in a position to do this?
Correct.
Question number 2, why has it taken until now to do this? Now, let me be really clear. I think the narrative that's come out of some of the players, Koepka, DeChambeau, Reed, most recently, the narrative that's come out of those players is atrocious. It's utter bullshit in terms of we're forced to play. They don't listen to us. This is our tour and they've taken it out of our control. Like, I thought Billy Horschel, if you haven't seen the clip of Billy Horschel in Scotland, he spoke excellently well, like exceptionally well on this for about 4 minutes. He got asked a question about it, and it felt like he'd been waiting for someone to ask him the question, and he kind of went into a little bit of a diatribe, and he said it so incredibly well. So I want to be really clear. I can't stand that narrative, but by the same token, if you're able to do this seemingly in response to what you underestimated the first wave being from a Live Tour perspective, how long have you actually been able to do it for, and why have you waited until now?
Agreed.
And then the question number 3, which I think may be the most important, because the first 2 are redundant, but you'll never get an answer to them, and they're not important anymore because you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah.
The third question is the most important. How much further can you go?
Yeah.
because
fair.
I think we've barely scratched the surface for the Saudis. I truly do. Like, money is not an issue.
Mm.
And my concern is from the outside, these are good moves from the PGA Tour. There's no doubt about that. But they do very much have the feeling of putting a Band-Aid over an axe wound. And my greater concern is they don't have much more they can do.
Yeah. I don't know. Good questions, but I don't.
I don't expect you to have an answer. I just think they're
it's-
fascinating questions, because if there are not many arrows left in the quiver, I've got some major concerns.
Well, I think the biggest one would be a complete overhaul of the tour's schedule, essentially, right? Like that's the biggest trigger and the biggest message and rhetoric that's come out from players who have gone to live is, oh well, I get to spend more time with my family because I'm only playing 8/14 events this year. So until that's the PGA's biggest, that's the ace up their sleeve right now. If they can turn it into a 3, 4, 5 month thing for this prize money, then all of a sudden maybe they are back on the table. But with less events becomes less media rights, becomes less money, all of that sort of stuff. The business behind it doesn't necessarily work. So fascinating one to keep an eye on over the next few months. I don't think they're going to make any sort of big rational decisions rather around the schedule anytime soon. What I would say is that I think this is coming out on the 12th of July. What I would say is that there are going to be some big news pieces to drop post the Open Championship, and we've been told that on relatively good authority that there is going to be some good news and some big news coming out in the world of golf in the next couple of weeks anyway. And also I think there's going to be a number of people who are going to jump ship to live in the next couple of weeks. This is the last major of the year. There's no more ramifications that ultimately really matter. Because the FedEx Cup prize is the same as one live tournament, right? So I think there's going to be some big names to potentially move over. But yes, in more positive news, I think there is going to be some good news to be coming out.
That'll be fascinating, because I kind of feel like that'll be happening at the same time, like a good old-fashioned Western shootout, because you'll have announcements coming out and you'll have players moving, and the announcements may be contingent on players being there to play them. So that's fascinating. Because
during Monahan's announcement, they announced Brooks within 3 minutes. Yeah.
Correct. And I think that's, so you look at it and we kind of flagged this last week, and you flagged it again. You will get a wave of players leave after the Open Championship. That to me, that will make bigger headlines. But I don't necessarily know that it'll be as important as the players who opt to leave after the FedEx Cup, because the players who leave after the Open Championship will be the ones to whom the FedEx Cup money is irrelevant, because they're getting that covered in the money they're getting paid to leave. Yep. So obviously lots of rumours around Hideki at the moment. That seems like a really strong piece of mail, and that's a huge get for them if they do, because that you can't underestimate what that unlocks for them through the Asian market.
Yep.
Hideki doesn't care about the FedEx Cup, because they'll pay him probably more than he'd earn at the FedEx Cup. I'm interested in seeing who the ones, because it's that next tier down, which is what we've always spoken about. It's that next tier down who'll wait around for the FedEx Cup payoff, and then they'll jump. You get a significant number of them, it changes the conversation entirely.
Well, moving to 14 events next year, almost certainly one here in Australia. Almost certainly there will be one here in Australia, and that will coincide with an Australian announcement. Now, my best guess is that it's going to be Adam Scott. Obviously has been heavily linked, and that's just guess. I've got no mail on that. But the other one, I would suggest that they should and probably will target also is Leash. I think that they're both Scotty and Leash are getting towards the back end of their careers now. I think Cam Smith will obviously get a lot of a lot of big offers to go over to live. But I think I don't know. I'm holding out. Maybe tell me to take my rose-colored glasses off you, KM. But I don't know. I can't see him going. So I think it's Scotty or Leash or both that will go to live and will really kickstart things here in Australia, which is going to be it's going to be really critical. I think obviously the PGA Tour moving to this full season, calendar season in 2024. So we've still got all of next year to go. Now, the challenge for the Aussie PGA Tour is how do they sort of stave off the live invasion for 12 months, right? So if they're going to bring an event here next year, we've obviously got our season headlined by the Aussie PGA and of course the Aussie Open as well. So hopefully we get half competitive fields for that. Who knows what the world's going to look like? So I think that the challenge, bringing it back home to an Australian point of view, is how does our tour stave it off for 12 months so that in 2024 we can get an event here in Australia, which is going to be so critical, so critical for.
And I get the sense. I mean, I know you've got the statement there that when we put some questions to the PGA, they gave us some. We'll get to that in a moment. I mean, obviously, you get the sense at least early days they'll stick fat to the establishment. But I also don't necessarily know that's important because I mean I'm making some assumptions here. I don't want to speak out of school, but you look at for instance the Live Invitational in Portland at Pumpkin Ridge, like they just approached the club. And they said, "Oh
yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to host this?" So like there could be an event here in Australia that is completely at arm's length from the governing body because it physically has had nothing to do with them at all. They've just
and it will
they've just lobbed here and they're playing an event. So
it will be and look, I did speak to the tour today and they said that they don't have to ask us for permission. They can do it. They're not associated with anyone. They're obviously not going to get any sort of funding or sponsorship or anything like that, but they don't need it.
Okay.
They are their revenue line is okay.
Probably just buy a golf club and then play.
Well, that's exactly right. So I think what that does show, and the strategy that Liv has taken so far is to go to corners of the world, particularly in the US, that are neglected by the PGA Tour, right? So they've gone to the Pacific Northwest, they've gone to Portland. The next event's in Boston, I think. There might be a PGA Tour event up there, but they've gone to strategically smart locations, right, to engage people who like golf that don't get to see a PGA Tour event because we have 5 events in Florida every year. So when it does come to Australia, it'll be fascinating to see where it lands. Because
they've engaged it's kind of like the Trump strategy for the 2016 election. They've engaged middle golf America who've been ignored and have become disenfranchised with the establishment.
Yeah.
And that's who they've captured the attention of.
Quite smart.
Quite
smart.
Very, very. And I think I don't read too much into this, but you look at a lot of the golf writers who've gone to cover these live events, most out of curiosity more than anything else. And I have found it interesting. One of the kind of core themes in the reporting has been these journalists walking around the grounds asking people if they care about the genesis of the funds and the money. And it seems an odd question to ask someone who's paid to go because clearly they don't. But that they keep saying, no one seems to care. Well, yeah, I mean, they've just had in their eyes, a bunch of fairly handy golfers turn up and play a tournament in their backyard, which they haven't seen in God knows how long. So I'm not surprised that they don't care. I'm not surprised they're excited. I don't know. You can judge it at a macro level as a result of that, but it's very smart.
But I think that's the danger for the homegrown tour, the Aussie tour here. And I think it's also the danger for the PGA Tour in markets like ours, right? It doesn't have a strong foothold here. Even our tour, I mean, if we're honest in terms of the sporting landscape, I mean, the PGA Tour of Australasia is not banging the door down for a podium place. It's not taking on the AFL, right? As much as we would love it to be that way, it's simply not. So I think the danger is that Liv gets in first and starts to build a significant following here in Australia, and then we're kind of another step behind. That we've got to, not only do we need to battle other sports for airtime, we're battling an internal threat as well, right? So I think that's going to be a really critical challenge for the PGA Tour of Australasia.
Agree.
As well.
And you'd have to think again. I don't want to jump the shark. You'd have to think probably somewhere in New South Wales. I mean, obviously, like Queensland, Southeast Queensland in particular, has had almost a mortgage on the PGA Championship for a decade, and seemingly will have that continue at Royal Queensland. Almost anything else that comes to Australia or is played here is played in Victoria. So you'd have to think not just because of the options, but also because of the market in Sydney in particular. You've got a number of courses there that could handle a tournament that requires broadcast bump in, because that's another consideration. So I'd have to think it'll be somewhere in Sydney.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And maybe I'm sort of romanticizing here. Given what they're trying to do strategically in terms of that Asian region, the business case for Perth makes a lot of sense. We're in the most populous time zone in the world in terms of Beijing is obviously lands in our time zone. So there is a very strong business case to bring it to Perth. The caliber of courses absolutely lets it down. Lake Karrinyup could do it. But the other point that we need to consider as well is, do these members want an event coming? Obviously, any event takes a lot of time out of the schedule. Do they want to be involved in Live Golf? Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
And I think that's critical. I mean, I think you look at the courses that I've chosen in America, a lot of them are Trump courses, a lot of them are courses where the demographics probably more open to having a tournament, not just play, but a tournament of that nature played. So yeah, it's definitely consideration. I think, the precarious position that a lot of golf clubs find themselves here in Australia, money talks ultimately.
Absolutely does.
And there'll be deep pockets that'll be coming with offers to play. It's only 54 holes. I don't know, it's for 3 days. It's fine.
True.
Don't worry about it.
So we did put some questions to the tour. And essentially they were around, have they had conversations with the tour to bring the PGA Tour to bring one of the new events to Australia? How advanced are they? Why have they not happened if they haven't happened? How's the obviously the wraparound tour has been something that has been mentioned to us around impacting the homegrown tour as to why it's kind of declined. Have they had discussions with Liv? Some of them were sort of not answered particularly in the statement, which I will add as well was word for word also given to another news media outlet. I think it was the Sydney Morning Herald. I think it was KM.
I'd say probably broadly across the Fairfax network. Yes.
Yeah. So that is, yep. All right. Anyway, push on from.
Hey, we're not a news media outlet. We're a humble podcast. So.
Yeah. Anyway, so what I might do, KM, is I'll just read the statement, and if you've got anything to add, then go for it. But it is sort of wide ranging. So this is from it can be attributed to Gavin Kirkman, who's the CEO of the PGA of Australia over in Scotland for the Open at the moment. The PGA of Australia is fully supportive of the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour as they continue to bring the global golf ecosystem together. We're in regular contact with both of the tours, and following conversations as recent as overnight, we're excited about the future. Our working relationship with both tours is stronger than ever as we continue to seek the best outcomes for our players, fans, and the sport in our region. Specifically, the opportunities presented by a move to the calendar year schedule for the PGA Tour should pave the way for our Australian stars to return home for our major event. And importantly, we have been actively talking to the tours about bringing events to Australia. The ISPS Handa PGA Tour of Australasia is focused on its strategic alliance with the DP World Tour, which is providing unprecedented pathways for our players to progress on that tour along with the Corn Ferry via the PGA Tour. We want to provide the best possible opportunities for all Australian touring professionals, and we're confident that working closely with the DP World Tour and PGA Tour will help us achieve that. Golf is still booming in Australia, and we're excited for our fans about the upcoming summer of golf on the PGA Tour of Australasia and the WA PGA Tour of Australasia. It's fantastic for our summer of golf that our two Aussie major tournaments, the PGA Championship and the Aussie Open, are both co-sanctioned by the DP World Tour and will kick off their 2022-2023 season. Our season is still some months away from starting, but we can't wait to welcome back our Australian stars to feature in our two marquee events in November and December. What do you make of all that? I mean, it certainly, paints a really good picture. And look, on face value, I take it that I'm, we can only believe what they've sent to us and what they've told us. I mean, it sounds like they're very obviously they're very closely aligned to the other tours in turning their back on Live Golf, but it sounds like it's moving in the right direction for some sort of significant event to happen down here in Australia anyway.
Agree. And yeah, I'm not surprised at all with the strength of the statement in the sense of sticking loyal to the PGA and the DP World Tour. Particularly, I mean, obviously they flagged it there at the end, but a series of really, really exciting announcements across our summer about the strengthened relationship, particularly with the DP World Tour, as they flagged there, the events being co-sanctioned. Our two, blue chip events being co-sanctioned, DP World Tour is really important. So I'm not surprised. I mean, early doors, you dance with the one who brought you, right? So that's what you do. What I would say is, I absolutely give them, because we've been very firm on our thoughts on Live Golf, so absolutely give them the credit they're owed and deserve for not engaging in conversations. I'm not necessarily sure that's because they've been asked and refused, or if they just haven't heard from them at all because they don't need to.
I think it's that.
They're not picking the phone up and having chats to the PGA Tour or the USGA. They're just going to clubs and organising tournaments, as we said. So, I think it's a little cute to say we haven't engaged, or not that they said that, but like if that's the line of, if that's the narrative, I'm not sure if that's because they've had an opportunity to refuse. What I will say is this: what I find interesting, because obviously the PGA Tour have been very strong on the players who make a decision to leave and play on the Live. Similarly with DP World Tour. Now, obviously, that ended up in court with players seeking an injunction to play in the Scottish Open, who were ultimately successful. And then Ian Poulter went on to hit it over. So that was a good use of his time. So that's interesting for me, is how that plays out, because it's been clear on the PGA Tour. To date, there's been no legal challenge. It's been muddied somewhat in the DP World Tour because they banned them, but then those banned players successfully sought an injunction to play at the Scottish Open. So fair bit unresolved there about how the application of a ban works in the DP World Tour. What I'm curious to know is, between now and December, when the home tour and the home summer kicks off, if we see players, Australian players, jump, let's hypothesize. You mooted two names earlier, Scott Leishman. If they jump, are they welcome to come home and play? We've had the defending Australian PGA champion play in the first two Live Golf tournaments. Is he welcome to come back and defend his crown because he's engaged in this tour?
Well, that's
a question that's unanswered for me at the moment, because
absolutely,
you've said, and I applaud you for saying that you remain loyal to the enduring and strategic and promising relationship you have with both tours. Both of those tours have made their stance very clear about players who join Live or play on Live playing in their tournaments. So I wonder, because the theme of that statement is very much, as it should be, we are buoyed and encouraged by these announcements, particularly the opportunities that it provides for the players now to come back and play. And that should be the headline, because it does. I'm curious, will the same rules apply?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and if they don't, what sort of pressure does that put on the strategic alliance relationship with the DP World Tour?
I wonder.
And the PGA.
I wonder what, I wonder if it would register, or I wonder if maybe it does make people over in Florida sit up and go, hang on a second, why are they playing? It's probably not even. I shouldn't limit it to Australian players.
Yeah,
We've had a history of, someone like Harold Varner has won.
Abe Answer
has won. So does that mean like those players? I mean, Abe has gone. Harold is rumoured to be amongst the next wave. Are those players not welcome to play in our tournaments now? I think that's, for me, that's probably the current top of the list of unanswered questions for me. And let me be really clear. I'm absolutely conscious that is because that may be because there isn't an answer yet. And that's perfectly fine because we are so early in this. Like, people have no idea what's coming. And I'm cognizant that if I was in the position of the PGA, I certainly maybe wouldn't want to be making some hard and fast decisions right now with the available information before maybe you give it a little bit more time after the majors are finished, after the FedEx Cup's finished, because we still have months then until our season starts here in Australia. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Take the time to make a decision. But that's definitely a question that I have now is the door open to those players, given it's not on the PGA or DP World Tour?
That's a great question, one that hopefully we'll get some answers to sooner rather than later. But as you mentioned, obviously things do take time, and there is a bit going on. And I want to, sorry to interrupt, Drews, but I want to kind of maybe underline that point. This is complex. Like, this is quite an intricate web at the moment that, people are tiptoeing a line, and I completely understand that. And that's not to say what was happening, last summer, the year before, wasn't complex with COVID. We're very critical of the establishment, the governing body then. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't regret anything we said, but I'm more than comfortable for them to take the time they require to make the right decision for our tour here in Australia. Because I think that's important as well. Everything has to be taken into consideration, but ultimately the decision has to be in the best interests of this tour in Australia and nothing else. Yeah, it's well put. And they do find themselves in that really precarious position that they do have a strategic alliance to the DP World Tour and of course, loosely with the PGA Tour as well. But also, we need to be welcoming back our players. So yeah, it'll be very fascinating to watch. In terms of the event that they bring down, look, I think it's a really good thing for the Australian golf ecosystem. I have seen some commentary online of current players on the PGA Tour of Australasia sort of saying, well, hey, what about us? And I understand that point. I just think that, we do need a big, almost a flagship event. I mean, yeah, it's going to be, if we can bring a PGA Tour event down with the top 70 players or in the world or whatever it's going to be, then it's going to be enormous, right? It's going to be far greater than what the Aussie PGA and the Aussie Open can do for the game here. And as much as that pains me to say it, but yeah, I think it will be fantastic. So hopefully that comes to fruition, and hopefully there's something sort of announced semi soon that we can start to get excited about.
And I would say, with the greatest amount of respect, play your way into it.
Yeah.
If you have an opportunity, as you just said, it'll probably be a standard 120 player field. I don't think we'll get more than 60, 70 commitments. So you'd have to think that maybe a little under half of the field will be filled with the opportunity of players from here in Australia and probably around the world as well to fill those spots. So play your way in, because this will be, as you just said, this will take us, if we get an event of this nature, and I'm realistic, we're going to be pushing shit uphill. You were very clear in the Asia/Oceania region on rotation.
Yeah. Correct.
So you'd have to think the temptation to send it to Japan or Korea first,
China,
would be enormous comparatively to sending it to Australia. But if we are lucky enough to get the first one, it will send us back to the halcyon days, Drews, because they will use this as a flagship tournament to show that they're growing the game. They're doing all the things that the Saudis think they're doing, and they're doing it the right way. So they will turn this into a flagship tournament, and it will, to your point, dwarf a PGA or an Australian Open. So you can't.
Yeah.
I empathise, as we do and have for the best part of 3 years with our players here. They are our primary interest. But you can't ask for a tournament with all those opportunities and money and not think that half the field is going to be filled.
Well, and also the flow-on benefits of having a PGA Tour event here
Absolutely.
in terms of the interest that it will generate in our tour, which ultimately leads to greater commercial revenue, is a great outcome for our local tour.
Trickle down
as well.
economics.
Yeah, it is trickle down economics. It's influencer marketing. Get the influencer in, build it up. But just very quickly before we wrap up, I must mention that they that I think. What did you say? 70 players or something will be eligible for this three no cut event thing that they're going to roll out. Yeah, I also wouldn't hold my breath that we're going to get the world's best down here every year. And that's okay. But you know, if we can end up with 35 out of the top 70, I think that is quite significant.
Huge.
So, yeah, it puts. I think it all of a sudden takes away the excuses from the likes of Jason Day, for example. Given that, hey, the season ends, well, maybe not for him because he's outside the 125, but that the season will end, and then we've got these 3 no-cut events. So you've now got time off to come down to Australia to support the Aussie PGA, to support the Aussie Open.
Come on, Jason.
And play in this event. So it will be quite significant. So that's all I'll say on that. Do you have anything else on this? Because I just wanted to very quickly mention the Aussie Q School as well.
No, I think it's a good conversation. As I said, I think it's just be conscious that we are right at the beginning of this, and this will continue to evolve. It will shift. It will move. Things will appear one way one day and completely different the next, and that's to be expected. You know, that's what happens when an industry gets disrupted, and that's okay. But yeah, I think when I say we, I mean the collective we of you and and I would suggest, you know, a great percentage of the people listen to this will always have, I suppose, what's best for our tour here at the front of mind. And I think that's important to realize that, you know, a lot of things will happen globally. It's about how it affects us here down the other end of the earth. That's important. So we'll keep a close eye on that. And I just want to give credit. It's probably been a while since we put questions to the PGA Tour of Australasia and got an answer. So credit where it's due. I think
Josh and the team doing a good job.
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to the new team, you know, the new comms team in there, and Josh, and obviously there, I think as well, like to the administration, Gavin Kirkman, to those guys who I think are plotting a path forward that's really good for the game, and you know, I think it's only going to benefit the broader golfing public, which is great.
Yeah, I think they've done well in the last 6 months, particularly with everything that's changed, and you know, primarily in the last handful of months as well, with everything blowing up. They've done a pretty good job. And look, I still think that we, you know, the whacks that we gave them during COVID were certainly warranted, and but for them to come out the other side of this COVID piece, and look, it makes me feel like we're in a strong position. You know, when we had Clates on the show, he said the biggest thing that's killed our tour is the wraparound tour. That's now gone as of 24, obviously. But so that excites me that we may be able to return to something that was more significant, or you know, that we may be able to return to those more significant days. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. And just very, very quickly, as I mentioned, KM, the PGA Tour of Australasia Q School was run and won. So shout out to DJ Loiper, who was the winner of the Q School. And really, the only reason we're doing this is a shout out to our good man, James Grierson. He gets a full card, which is awesome. So Pumped for Greer. So shout out as well. I'll read the other guys out, which is a wonderful achievement. It was tight. It was very tight. There were some players who just snuck in and just missed out. So DJ Loiper, Jack Munro, Andrew Campbell, Simon Hawkes, Darcy Brereton, Mark Hudson, Lachlan Baker, Scott Strange, James Grierson, Blake Proverbs, Kit Biddle, Jack Carter, Ben Campbell, Jack Murdoch, and Corey Lamb. So shout out to those 15 gentlemen, and a massive shout out to our man James Grierson as well.
Love that. Good on you, Jimmy G. Good for Jim. That wraps us up for this week. Monday, I should say. It's a busy week. We'll be back as we are at the Thursday mark of all major weeks with our official preview of the 150th Open Championship from St Andrews. We'll speak to you then.